Hafa and good afternoon, everyone. The Committee on Higher Education and the Advancement of Women, Youth, and Senior Citizens now convenes this public hearing. In accordance with the Open Government Law, notices were first sent on May 3rd and again on May 8th and revised on May 9th. For the record, today is Friday, May 10th, and the time now is 2:48 p.m. The committee will hear and accept testimony, both oral and written, on the following: the confirmation hearing for Francis X. Heasel to serve as a member of the University of Guam Board of Regents. I'd like to thank Senator Kelly Marsh-Titano for joining me this afternoon. So we have some people who have come to testify in support of the confirmation of Father Francis Heasel. I'd like to invite anyone who is here to provide oral testimony to please come up. We have Mariflor Herrero from the University of Guam who signed up for oral testimony. If there's anyone else who wishes to testify, please come up. We also have on the sign-in sheet giving written testimony is Lisa Provito, and others who are here in support: Elvin Chang, Hiro Kurashina, Mr. David Okada, and Rebecca Stevenson. Title 17 of the Guam Code annotated states that the government and control of the University of Guam are vested in the Board of Regents. The code states that the regents shall have general supervision over the university and the control and direction of all funds of and appropriated to the university, subject to such restrictions as may be prescribed by law. The board shall set the policies governing the duties, conditions of employment, compensation, salary, and emoluments of all employees of the university as herein provided. The board shall submit an annual budget to the legislature in the manner prescribed by law. The board shall have the authority to delegate such of its powers as it may deem appropriate, but shall retain the ultimate responsibility for the exercise of its powers. At this time, I would like to allow for Ms. Mariflor Herrero and then Ms. Lisa Provito. So you may begin. Please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Madam Secretary and Senator Amanda Shelton and Senator Kelly Marsh-Titano. So I am here today to testify on behalf of Father Frank Heasel for him to be confirmed as a member of the University of Guam Board of Regents. I don't know if you have a chance to look at his curriculum vitae, but it's too long. but in any case, I really believe that he is super qualified to be a member of the Board of Regents of the University of Guam. And me and the nominating committee, the members of the nominating committee, were really very, very happy when we saw his applications and his willingness to give out of his time and his experience to the people of Guam. If you look at his curriculum vitae, I mean, he has spent over 50 years in Micronesia. Beginning with the fact that he's a member of the Society of Jesus, and so is a priest and came to Micronesia as a priest and to work in the Catholic schools in Micronesia. But he also became the principal of Xavier High School in Micronesia, then the director of the school, then the director of the Micronesian Seminar, then at the same time, he was a pastor of Moen in the Catholic Church. He also became the regional superior of the Jesuits in Micronesia from 1992 to 1998. He was the local superior of the Jesuits in Pohnpei. He was the assistant editor of the American Magazine, assistant pastor of St. Anthony Parish in Oceanside, New York. I guess he probably had a sabbatical from 2011 to 2012. So he was in Oceanside, New York. Then he came back and became a resident of the Dulce Nombre de Maria Cathedral, 2012 to 2013, and so right now is the parochial vicar of Santa Barbara Parish Church in Dededo. So, you know, he has a wealth of experience in so many fields, especially in Micronesia. He has dedicated his life. Obviously, his love is history, the historical issues in Micronesia, as well as the social issues. And the proof is all the work that he has done, and all his publications. And just to give you a short synopsis of, according to his CV, he has published 10 books, 9 monographs, 7 edited reports on Micronesian seminar conferences. He has other unpublished reports, 10, 38 historical articles about Micronesia, 22 educational articles about Micronesia, and 35 about social issues, and 38 in political and economic issues. So, you know, that's, in short, I really believe that he is a true scholar. And the University of Guam is very lucky to have him to become a member of the University of Guam. That's my testimony.
Thank you very much, Mayor Flor. And Lisa, you may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Secretary, Senator Shelton, Senator Marsh Titano. I'm here also in support for the nomination for Father Hessel to the Board of Regents. And I had just met him today, but I'm here because my husband actually had met him probably more than 2 decades ago in Ponape, when he was the principal and director of St. Xavier's School. At that time, Father Hessel must have made quite an impression on him, because my husband was really excited about his nomination when I told him about it, and probably more so than my nomination. But in any case, I think Father Hessel, his calling goes well beyond the Jesuit mission and ministry, having a lifetime of exemplary public service. He's a scholar of Micronesia, a prolific writer. He was an ADB consultant for the Federated States of Micronesia, healthcare advocate, and so much more. So I too am looking forward to his participation and what he has to offer as a regent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And now I will invite anyone else who wishes to give oral testimony. No? Okay, so Senator Kelly, do you have any questions for this panel? Okay, all right, thank you very much, ladies. And now we'll call up Father Francis Hessel to give his testimony. Thank you. Yes, right in the middle is good.
Thank you. Thank you, Senators. Senator Shelton, Senator Kelly. A few months ago, I was told that I was chosen as a candidate for a vacant position on the University of Guam's Board of Regents. When asked if I would accept this position, I replied that I'd be honored to do so. I was especially glad to accept the position, if offered, because it would provide me the opportunity for payback, in the best sense of the word. After all, Mark had inspired so much of my own work at the Micronesian Seminar, which was our own creation, for nearly 40 years. As you know, I'm a Jesuit priest who spent nearly his entire adult life in this part of the world. I'd always hoped to be known as a teacher, because I told somebody once I'd like that written on my tombstone, because I loved the classroom from the very beginning. My initiation into the classroom began at Xavier High School, Chuk, in 1963. Altogether, I spent 25 years in Chuk, 15 of those years at Xavier as a classroom teacher, principal, and then finally director of the school. When I left the school in 1982, the Jesuits assigned me to become the head of a newly devised but largely untested program that was called the Micronesian Seminar. The purpose of the program was to shift attention to public education, from education for the young to public education, at a time when there were so many contemporary issues that needed to be addressed. The political status question had been more or less resolved by that time, but there was still plenty of other questions that in the air. Effective economic development, improvement of public services, especially education, cultural confusion in an age of rapid modernization. It was a daunting challenge, but I quickly learned that I didn't need to be an expert on any of those topics. My job was to spark a conversation among the people who themselves would have to decide on these issues in any case. So what I learned during these long years at Mike Sem, as it was popularly known, is that if I wanted to do public education, I had to be a lifetime student. I say this not as political speak, but as a lesson learned over a fascinating lifetime. Now, 40 years later, I can thank the people who helped me to grow up for their patience and the education that they've offered me. I want to say a word about Mark. Mark was an attraction of the university for me from the very beginning. Looking in during my regular visits to the island, I watched the organization grow from its infancy. Its mission, as I understood it, was to do research on island history and culture that might be translated into material to enrich the island population. That's also what I saw myself doing in the islands of the South. So Mark became my model over the years. Now, I would be happy to see it operating at full tilt once again in helping people understand the islands and the issues that they face. Let me remind you that the University of Guam has served the island nations to the south in other ways as well. After all, the College of Guam, as it was then known, provided them with a gateway to higher education during the 1960s, when the old Trust Territory dorms were filled with Micronesian students who would have otherwise had nowhere to go. What do I bring to the table here and now? More years than I would like to acknowledge of work in the region. During those years, I've logged lots of time in the classroom, including the classrooms on the UOG campus, by the way. In addition, I've written some books, including histories of the area, and published articles, has been mentioned. But even more important in some ways have been the 75 educational videos, dramas, and documentaries that were produced during the Mike Sem years. But we're not finished yet. Currently, I'm working with a local filmmaker on a video on the homeless here in Guam. That should be out before the end of this calendar year. If you feel that I might have something to offer the university as a region, I'd be happy to serve. But I wouldn't feel offended if you chose someone else who might offer greater benefits to the university than I could. After all, it's the effectiveness of the education, whether post-secondary or public, that's at stake here. And so, let me rest my case there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Father, and I think we're all very excited to have you serve on the Board of Regents. We're thankful to Governor Leon Guerrero for appointing you, and we're thankful for you to answer this call to serve in this capacity on the Board of Regents. And as you said, quite a fascinating life indeed. You have a very, very extensive resume, as was attested to by the people here testifying on your behalf in favor of your appointment. And I'll just go ahead and let Senator Kelly Marsh Taitino begin if she has any questions for you today.
Hafaday. So,
Excuse me.
I'll start with some comments, and then I have just one question that I am thinking of right now. Along with some of the others who have come through here, it's a very interesting situation for me because I got my education at the University of Guam reading your books as part of my reading materials. So as the senator before me was mentioning, you have a very extensive curriculum vitae. I counted the pages, there are 21, and each one's full. And two of the books that I still continue to recommend quite often to a variety of people here in Guam are The Making Sense of Micronesia and The New Shape of Old Island Cultures. I think that they provide us so much here as we're navigating through a lot of issues. It helps us understand what you've been observing over the years, and not only you observing over the years, but you took the time to be doing a lot of reflection with others, a lot of reaching out with others, and having them be able to review your material to give you feedback and so forth. And so those, among many others, are such valuable contributions. They really speak to your ability, I believe, at the regent level to be providing your background in looking at social issues, cultural, political issues, educational ones, and so forth, because they all come into play in one way or the other at the higher education institutions. And I think there you'll be able to, with your experience and with who you are and your professional background, you'll be able to think of issues at the student level, their family, at our changing island society level, both for here and maybe the island that they come from. And having your vast interest in research and education, I think that will serve us well additionally. And along with many others, I missed the website, the Micronesian Seminar website, where you led the way for Micronesia in a lot of ways by having a collection of tens of thousands of audio recordings, photographs, and so forth that you made available to all of us. And I'm looking forward to the work that you're doing now with the homeless to see what that's going to impart for us. So I think that's going to be very important to pay attention to. So the only question that I have really is, you've been back here on Guam for a while now, and I'm sure you've been observing the landscape, social and otherwise. Are there any priorities that you have in mind if you do make it to the Board of Regents for the university?
Yes. Thanks for asking that question. I do, and I talked about this just a couple days ago with the Mark Associates, and also with the university president when I had lunch with him a few months ago. I told him that I feel strongly that a university like UOG has a mission to the general public, and that's what I implied in my remarks. I think that one of the missions to the general understanding and general education is always related to the future. And so I would like to see the University of Guam take a primary role in public education on such things as political status or on tourism, and economic development, as well as on the social problems, things like, the homeless. Although I have to add here that when we finish the video on homelessness, it's going to have a strong note of appreciation for what the island has already done. I'm in admiration of how the government has been able to work with private organizations in doing all that it's doing, you know, to help. The problem remains a problem nevertheless, but you know, I think it's a good model of treating the problem, of the collaboration that's necessary to attack a problem like this. So those are the things, those are the priorities I would see. Public education, the university to become a vehicle of that, and to bring together people with differing views on such things as political status so that it gets the attention, perhaps a broader attention of the public, and we have people not speaking separately on this question, but actually engaging one another. That's what universities are supposed to do, I think. Thank you.
Sidusmasi, that sounds like a very, it sounds like a commendable set of priorities that you have there. And then one of the other things that I had written down there here to make sure to mention is you're the type of person to make things happen. So I look forward to those priorities being in the works in the near future.
Yeah, people have called me different things, but never a procrastinator or a person who's slothful.
So, Sidusmasi, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Taitano. And I just have a few questions for you, Father, before we complete the hearing. So one of the key Jesuit values is cura personalis, care for the personal development of the whole person. In what ways do you think that the University of Guam can better care for the whole personal development of their students? This question is coming from a lot of recent conversation that I've had at the University of Guam, and I've talked to President Christ about the need for more support for some of our victims of sexual assault on campus, for example. And I think we're making a lot of positive steps towards that. So, like the University of Guam Legal Counsel has indicated that the sexual harassment policy, it's time for it to be updated this year. And so I've noted to the President that there are some insufficient victim services in the policies. So what can we do for this personal development for our students? And what do you think about our policy on sexual assault for our students on campus? If you can speak to those two things.
Yes. First of all, thank you. One of the things I remember very well is Jesuit involvement in campus ministry. That was going on for a period of, it must be 20 years or so. I mean, one after another, we had priests there, we had lay workers there, we had that campus ministry building close to the campus, we had outreach into the dormitories, we had not terribly many local students, but a lot of the boarders were involved in this thing, and even a fair number of the faculty. I'd like to see that revived in some form or other. I truly would. I know that there's a deacon, he's a former Jesuit, who is attempting to do work. In fact, I just talked to him about this quite recently. He's attempting to do work at the dormitories there, but he is hampered by the fact that there's no institutional backup. And I don't mean the university side, I mean any institutional backup on the church's side. So he's resolved to do something on that. That's the answer to the first part of the question. As far as the sexual assault goes, I'm a little mystified by this. You know, I pointed out in some of the writings that you've referred to, I pointed out that this sort of thing wouldn't go on as much in the islands because the blood relatives of the girl would mangle the boy who was responsible. I mean, there would be payback in the worst sense of the word, you know, for that. That apparently is not done anymore, and I think that it's not just out of consideration for the law, it's because of a change, cultural changes that have taken place over this time. So apparently we do need different kinds of enforcement in place. I don't know what I don't know what can be done about it. The only thing is, I would say that I'm concerned not just with the sexual assault, but I'm concerned with the physical violence to women. Remember, I was in Ponape for for 18 years. Over a 14-year period, we've seen 5 women die, killed by their spouses or by their boyfriends. So I became, as I explained to people, a true believer in doing something about that. But let me say also that I don't think that the program should be too broad, and I don't think that we should worry about psychological abuse at this point, or verbal abuse, perhaps. Let's narrow it down to the physical components of it that matter most. Otherwise, as I told people in Ponape at that time, otherwise we're in danger of attempting to do everything and achieving nothing. What I want to see is the violence stopped and the sexual assault stopped. Those are just some preliminary thoughts.
Okay, Father, thank you very much for those answers. I'm comforted to hear that those are issues of concern to you as well. So I hope that once you are confirmed, those are things that you'll work alongside your other regents who are here in support of you, so that those are issues that are always of top priority for our student safety. So Suduas Masi. And just one more question. Another Jesuit value is magis, doing more than what is expected and striving for excellence. With your extensive experience in education throughout Micronesia, in what ways do you think our university can do more for our students who come to Guam from throughout Micronesia to pursue higher education?
I think that the university over the years, as I said, has done a lot. I think it could do, I think that the university, again, I don't know what the numbers show. I haven't kept up with that. But as I was explaining to somebody before the hearing started, the total numbers of Micronesians, compact nation Micronesians going to the U.S. is dropped considerably over recent years because of the tuition, because of the unaffordability, even though Micronesians, of course, can work in the States now. I'm expecting that more and more people are going to be turning to Guam. I'm expecting that it's going to play a role just as it has in the past, in the future. And I think that we certainly need to welcome them, but we need to make sure also that they have people to talk to. I'm thinking that one of the things that we had in the old days when we had trust territory dormitories was a group of counselors. They might not have been paid counselors, but they were unofficial persons that you could that these people could talk to. Maybe as church involvement grows in what I've called campus ministry, maybe we can provide some help that way. Maybe we can work with the teachers in trying to provide, a bit of counseling help, academic counseling help, and other things at the same time, without having to hire a whole new cadre of persons who are licensed as counselors.
Thank you very much, Father. I appreciate that you'll bring a different perspective and some historic experience that you've had at the university with you to the Board of Regents to help address some of these concerns and make student life better for everyone on campus and develop our university for Guam and our entire region. So I really appreciate that. And I look forward to confirming you in one of our upcoming sessions. And Suduas Masi, thank you very much, Senator Kelly Marsh Taitino, for joining me today. And we conclude this hearing at 3:17 p.m. Thank you very much.
Okay, and thank you. Thank you.